Hi there, I'm the Underscore Twig, and I like analysing game rules. I've been playing around with the new Psion, and I've found that the Psi Warper is actually almost perfect for one of my all-time favourite characters. I figured you guys might be interested to see the build that I came up with. It's not especially optimised, very much character build, but it should still give you an idea of what a single class Psion can do right from levels 1 to 20, as well as what they struggle with. Before we get to the build though, I first need to introduce you to Renneth Danse. I've had her kicking around in my head for something like 10 years now, well before I even started playing D&D. She's one of my top 3 favourite characters ever, and one of the 2 characters that I played in the only long-form campaign I've ever been a player in. Renneth is the daughter of House Danse, which was one of the only noble houses to join the rebellion in the War of Names, which was a civil war to achieve Gavendala's independence from the Kerans. As an extremely capable speaker with a tactical mind, she was a key name, and is now seen as the mother of democracy in the modern-day Republic of Gavendala. Everything went exactly according to plan. See, Renneth was the one who lit the fires of rebellion. Renneth was the one who brought her family into the war. Renneth was the one who commanded her brother to fight in a battle he had no chance of winning. Democracy creates legitimacy, and as a war hero and a noble, she would be almost guaranteed the presidency. And by manipulating things behind the scenes or forgetting to codify a few democratic guardrails, president becomes synonymous with queen. Her true intentions would ultimately be discovered by a small group of her allies just days before the first election, and after suffering a total defeat, she disappeared, seemingly vanishing into thin air, leaving only the public legacy of a philanthropic leader, an icon of national pride, and a hero who gave everything for her country. The truth never came out. I absolutely adore Renneth. She's the best villain I've ever ran. I've tried to build her as a PC multiple times with varying success, but I think that the Psi Warper fits really well. In terms of abilities, there are 3 primary things that I want to recreate. First up, she is incredibly intelligent and an excellent public speaker. She needs to be good at persuasion and deception, but also have a fairly high int stat. This is actually the hardest thing about building her. D&D does not have a lot of room for both high int and high chat. Second, her primary and publicly known power is that she can manipulate the flow of time. She can make it flow faster or slower, but cannot stop it entirely or reverse it. She can also localise this effect to individual people or to locations. Finally, she has a secret contract with a being called Domination. Domination gives her the ability to control people through language. She can say a single word, which can be hidden within a longer speech, and whoever she uses Domination's power on suddenly gets an overwhelming urge to do exactly what she just said. For example, she might talk about the fact that she subscribes to the Gavendala Sentinel newspaper, or she might comment on the weather and how much she likes the snow. Or maybe she would share the fact that there is an odd patron at a music hall she was planning to join. They speak of early access to videos, a Discord server, and the amazing conductor Mark Rainbow, who leads Biney on the flute, Jaleli on the cornet, and SK on the triangle. Right, that's enough messing around. I freaking love Renneth. Let's get to the build. So, setup. Renneth is a human, or at least a human equivalent. Humans on Morn are genetically different from humans on Earth, and they have a few differences like more canines, fewer ribs, and much stronger legs. In D&D terms though, she is a human. I'm putting 17 in intelligence, 14 in dexterity and charisma, and 13 in constitution, in preparation for a feat later on. This does leave her with only 9 in wisdom, which isn't ideal, but given that she has proficiency in whiz saves, and a level 2 defense mode means that she can boost her mental saves, and she'll also get psionic guards to break out of common wisdom based conditions, her saves are better than they look. On a more optimised character, you'd probably want to go 12 whiz, 12 chat. As a human, she gets to pick 2 origin feats, which will be Magic Initiate Wizard for Blade Ward, Ray of Frost and Mage Armor, and one of the new Wild Talent feats from the Psion UA, Psi Trickster. This gives her Minor Illusion, Disguise Self, and proficiency bonus times per day. She can add her intelligence modifier to a deception or persuasion check. This is one of the many ways that I'm helping to supplement the fact that charisma is not her primary stat. For her skills, I'm giving her Arcana, Deception, Intimidation, Persuasion, and Religion, and I'm also going to give her Woodcarver's tools. Right, loads of stuff at first level. First up, Psionic Power gives her 46 to spend on either Telekinetic Propel or Telepathic Connection, letting her either push or pull someone a number of spaces up to whatever she rolls on the d6, or giving herself a reasonably large telepathy. Telekinetic Propel will be flavoured as her using Domination to compel the target to move, with commands like Dash, Attack, Jump, Flee, Come, or Approach. And then Telepathy will be, I don't know, she makes herself go fast and then whispers in someone's ear? Don't really have a good flavour one for that, but it's a thing that she can do now apparently. She also gets Subtle Telekinesis, which is an invisible mage hand that I am also lacking flavour for, and a massive number of spells. I've split the spells into categories to help make sure that they are diversified, and also to identify any holes. Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, and Disguise Self were all automatically prepared for us from features and feats, and all being put in the utility category because they're quite useful. For the rest, I'm going to go through them category by category. As our control spells, Command is a must pick, both because it's a great spell, and also because it's literally what Renneth does. It doesn't even have any components, so she can actually just use it mid-sentence, which I love. We're also getting Tasha's Hideous Laughter as our primary concentration option. Easy flavour here, just command them to laugh. I know a lot of people really like the new version of Sleep, but I'm definitely a Tasha's truther. Nothing in support yet, so onto our blast spells. Mind Sliver also has no components, so she can just do it. Interesting question for the DMs. If you have a player who can simply think damage at people using an unlimited at-will ability, how are you having NPCs react? Ray of Frost lets Renneth use time powers to slow people, and then True Strike is just there as a damage option. This will be using a D8 light crossbow, because of course it is, but really important flavour here. On Renneth's art, you'll see she has a massive sword on her back. This is a family heirloom, and it's way too big for her. She cannot use it properly, and she effectively just goes fast mode and charges people. If any of you have ever played Transistor, that's what her True Strike is. And if you haven't played Transistor, you should go do that. It's a great game, made by the guys that made Hades. Moving on, as our defensive options, Blade Ward is our secondary concentration, and at level 1 I think Mage Armor is better than Shield. Having +3 AC all the time is much more useful than +5 for one round. Both of these will just be her quickly parrying attacks or dodging, which brings us on to Jump in the mobility category, which obviously lets Renneth move faster. Finally, we have Detect Magic in Information, which again doesn't really have any particular flavour. It's just a really useful spell to have. Okay, after a massive first level, we have an almost as big second level, because we get Psionic Modes, Psionic Disciplines, and another spell. Psionic Modes first, we get Attack Mode, which does essentially nothing for us, and Defense Mode, which is really good since it lets us spend Psi Dice to boost an Int, Whiz, or Chas save. We could turn that on twice per day for a minute each, so it's really nice and accessible. For our next spell prep, we're just taking Featherfall as a mobility option, allowing Renneth to slow herself or some allies when falling. And then we have our disciplines. I'm taking Eid Insinuation first, letting us spend 2 of our 4 Psi Dice to give a target who passes their save on Command or Tasha's -1d6, possibly allowing it to land. It's expensive right now, but it's a good enough effect that I think it's worth having. More importantly though, Devil's Tongue. Spend a Psi Die and add it to a Charisma check. If Renneth uses all of her features, she can boost up to +7 +1d6 Persuasion at level 2. That average is like 21. She is such a good face, and she only gets better. Level 3, again, loads of stuff. One thing that I can definitely say about Psion is that you get so much right at the beginning. We get our subclass, Psi Warper, which gives us Shatter as our first spell slot blast, and then Expeditious Retreat, Featherfall, and Misty Step under Mobility. That also lets us drop the Featherfall that we have prepared at 2 and pick something else. I think that by 3 we have enough slots to dedicate 1 per day to Mage Armor, so let's use the second feature of Magic Initiate, which everyone always forgets about. Did you know that every time you level up, Magic Initiate lets you swap one of its spells? We can prep Mage Armor as a Psion spell, and then shift Magic Initiate over to Shield. Really good boost to our defences. Finally, our last prep will be Suggestion. Once again, Renneth using the powers of domination to compel people to act. Once again, she gets to ignore all spell components too, so it can't be countered or anything. That's all of our spell changes, so onto class features. Teleportation lets us cast Misty Step once per day for free, or spend a Psi Die to do it again, and Warp Propel is bonus action Vortex Warp for the cost of 1 Psi Die. Absolutely incredible features. The Psi Warper has such good battlefield positioning. All of the teleportation features that Renneth gets will be flavoured as moving really fast rather than actual warping. And if she uses them on enemies, she'll also be commanding them to flee or jump or something like that. Sadly, Renneth can't actually teleport. Our first somewhat slow level. At 4 we're picking up Resilient Constitution to round out that 13 con and boost our concentration. Then for spells, Blindness Deafness. I wanted something non-concentration, and in the level 2 list, that is actually kind of tricky. You don't have enough spell preps to be spending them on Knock or Magic Mouth, and I am much harsher on Magic Image than I think most people are, due to the action cast and low duration, and that makes level 2 spells on a Scion kind of tricky. If Lesser Restoration or Scorching Ray was on the list, I'd definitely take that, but Blindness is definitely a good spell. There are a lot of good non-combat options on that list actually, like Detect Thoughts, Locate Object, and Zone of Truth is one of the only spells that I actually ban at my table, but I don't want to take any of them yet, until we're more rounded. Back to another big level, at 5 our Psi Dice upgrade. We now have 6d8 instead of 4d6. That means more teleports, better charisma checks, and safer saving throws. Brilliant. We also get Psionic Restoration, so once per day we can short rest to get 4 of them back, rather than just the normal 1. I typically assume a day with 4 combats and 1 short rest, so that means 10 Psi Dice to spend across the day. Not bad, at least 2 per fight with a couple left over. Then we have 3rd level spells. From Psi Warper we get Haste for support and Blink for defense. And I actually can't think of a more perfect spell than Haste for a character whose primary ability is speeding up time. 2 more preps, which will go into Dispel Magic as one of the best support spells in the game, and the big level 3 concentration spell will be Fear, almost exclusively because I think it's the more evil fun option. The obvious command for this is to flee. Something else that I decided to do for a bit of fun was to also plan out a Bastion, and we get our first facilities at level 5. I generally really like the library, that information collection is very useful, and then I was planning on taking the Arcane Study. But as those of you who read my pinned comment on my previous video will know, I realised that you just can't. Scion doesn't get an Arcane Focus. They actually don't meet any of the prerequisites for limited facilities. It doesn't matter yet, but by level 9, when you want your Bastion to produce lots of magic items, that's actually a real problem. It cuts you right off from things like a Pearl of Power or a Wand of the War Mage. This is actually one of my primary pieces of feedback for the survey, because I actually think that it's super important that players get to build the Bastion that they want. Since Renneth can't get an Arcane Study, she'll have a Storehouse instead, because money is definitely useful in an election campaign. Right, level 6 Warp Space and Teleporter Combat. Warp Space lets us spend a Psi Die to upgrade Shatter, making it bigger and allowing us to pull enemies towards the centre, which could be 10 feet up in the air, which will then drop them prone. And then Teleporter Combat says that we can cast a Scion cantrip as part of the same bonus action that we use Misty Step. Since we can cast Misty Step by spending a Psi Die instead of a spell slot, that gives us a bunch of really cool burst options. We can Misty Step, Mind Sliver, and then use Fear all in the same turn. Or maybe we can use Warp Space Shatter to drop an enemy prone, run into True Strike with advantage on a versatile quarterstaff, and then Misty Step back out. It doesn't say if you need to use the cantrip before or after you Misty Step, so I think you can do either. Really cool feature. We also get another spell, and this took me literally about 20 minutes to pick. The level 3 Scion list feels incredibly samey, redundant, or niche. You don't need both Fear and Hypnotic Pattern on the same character. Fly just doesn't feel necessary on a character with this many mobility options, both for herself and her team. Tongues and Clairvoyance are very campaign dependent, and who needs Telekinetic Crush when you have Warp Space Shatter? That basically leaves the good options as Major Image, Summon Astral Entity, and Intellect Fortress. Intellect Fortress is again kinda campaign dependent and typically gets better at higher levels, and Illusions and Summons are just simply not things that Renneth does. If I was building a generic character, I'd probably have gone for Major Image. That 4th level upcast is amazing. But as is, I ultimately decided to loop back to level 2 for Silence. This is really interesting on the Scion, since they don't need verbal components. If you can trap an enemy caster inside it, probably with the help of an allied martial grappling, then you can cast spells whilst they can't. I'm putting that in the control category, but it's really versatile. It can be used for stealth, or defense against enemies that use thunder damage, or all sorts of things. I'm going to flavour this one with the command to Hush, or to Quiet. Level 7. Psionic Surge means we get defense mode every combat if we want it, and Psi Warper gives Banishment for control and Dimension Door for even more mobility. Excellent spells. Banishment will be a command to Disappear, and we'll also get Polymorph as a spell with the command to Change or Transform. Probably a bit more out there than most of Renneth's standard uses of Domination, but again, the 4th level list doesn't feel great. That's more of an issue with 4th level spells though. Ralathim's Psychic Glance has historically been decent, but with the 2024 version of Command, I just do not want to spend a 4th level slot on that effect. Summon Aberration is another one which is good, but I don't want summons on Renneth. That brings us on to 8th level, where I'm picking up the only other 4th level which really interests me, Arcane Eye in the information column. And we also get another feat. Standard practice here is to get Warcaster, but with good con saves and such a huge amount of mobility, I'm less bothered than I normally would be. I also just want to pump that persuasion even more, so skill expert for persuasion expertise and stealth to go with silence. We're now on +8 persuasion, which is basically equivalent to a sorcerer, but we can pump it even further with an additional +4 +1d8 if we spend resources. That's even better than a maxed out bard. The Scion really does have excellent face potential. It's really incredible. Another good alternative here, if you weren't face maxing, would actually be Ritual Caster. Grab Speak with Animals, Find Familiar, maybe Comprehend Languages or Detect Poison and Disease, or free up a prep with Detect Magic. I think it's actually a pretty good mid-game pick on the Scion. Level 9, we now have 8d8 Psi dice, so that's 13 in my standard 1 short rest day. Psi Warper also gives us Steel Wind Strike, a very thematic blast spell for a character with time powers, and Teleportation Circle, which is just a useful one to have. On top of those, we get 2 more preps, which will be Telekinesis for a bit of sustained enemy control, probably themed as making an enemy jump in the air and then slowing them down, and an excellent information spell, Contact Other Plane, letting Renneth speak directly to Domination. A little context on Domination actually. If this was the Forgotten Realms, I would probably swap Domination out with Bane. We're talking about that sort of character. Contact Other Plane is another one which is really interesting on the Scion, because it has no components. You can just sit there and no one ever has to know that you just spoke to some elder entity or whatever. You can also activate Defense Mode as a bonus action just before you finish casting the spell for a bit of insurance on that DC 15 int save. With +8, Renneth only has about a 9% chance to fail it. Bastion Facilities. This is where I really wanted the Arcane Study, but we can't get that, so Workshop and Scriptorium instead. The Workshop gives her access to Cloak of Protection, a Stone of Good Luck, Boots of Striding and Springing for even more movement options, maybe a Broom of Flying or a Cloak of Elven Kind, or even something like Pipes of Haunting. Loads of good options. The Scriptorium can then be used to mass produce spell scrolls for us, and as an aspiring politician, Renneth might actually get use out of those pamphlets that it can make. Moving on to level 10, we get Dupliticus Target. This is an amazing defensive feature that lets us swap positions with a party member, causing them to take an attack for us. That is such a fantastically Renneth thing to do, by the way. It's an excellent way of murdering allies that become a liability. We won't be using it for that though, because in D&D you don't try and murder your party. This is a feature that you really need to discuss. Many players are not fond of the idea of taking attacks. Other than that, we get 2 more disciplines, which will be Tactical Mind, letting us also boost Renneth's int checks, and Psionic Guards, which helps her just remove the charmed and frightened conditions, no actions required. It also gives advantage on int saves, so we can again boost that DC 15 save on Contact Other Plane, dropping the fail chance to less than 2%. Finally, spells. We're grabbing Synaptic Static as one of the best blasters in the game, and we get another cantrip. Remember earlier when we shuffled Mage Armor off of Magic Initiate to grab Shield? We're going to do that again. We're going to learn Blade Ward as a Scion and shift our Magic Initiate to Mending. The reason for this is that as an action cast, Blade Ward can be cast as part of Misty Step's Teleport to Combat. Not sure how often that one will come up, but it's relevant enough to do the shuffle. Flavour wise, Mending will literally just be sewing the thing back together really quickly or something like that. Level 11, our Psi dice upgrade to D10s and Renneth gets Mass Suggestion, which is a fairly self-explanatory control option, and then level 12 we get a feat. We could again take Warcaster or Ritual Caster, but I just want that +2 int because there's another feat that I want to grab at 16. We've just blitzed through a few levels there, so level 13 we get 2 more Psi dice, bringing us up to 10d10, and for Renneth's first 7th level spell, I'm grabbing Etherealness in the utility column. This is for a very specific moment in Renneth's story, which I won't explain in detail, but to give a quick summary, she can sort of combine her time and domination powers to get in and out of places without being noticed. You'll just have to trust me that it's a really cool character pick. I do actually think that Etherealness is a really good spell anyways, one of the best at level 7, but alternatives if you want to build your own character are probably Power Word, Fortify or Reverse Gravity. The level 6, 7 and 8 lists actually have several good options on them. Scion only really struggles at 2 to 4. We also get another Bastion facility, which will go on the Meditation Chamber because of course we want advantage on saving throws. This is one of the best facilities in the game. Level 14 gives Renneth Mass Teleportation, action and 4 side eyes to teleport a bunch of creatures up to 150 feet. This is an incredible capstone. We can get the party in, or facilitate an escape, or we can clump up enemies for the wizard spells, or we can even teleport the enemies 150 feet straight up and then just drop them, dealing 15d6 damage and knocking them prone. There is so much versatility here. This thing is awesome. We also get another cantrip, and I'm just picking up Friends. If you remember, the side Trickster feat gave us a free once per day cast of Disguise Self, so Renneth can sorta do the old Warlock Mask of Many Friends tech. It's not especially thematic, but God knows what else we're supposed to take here. 15th level, 8th level spells, and we're taking Befuddlement. Brilliant spell. It can completely shut down a spellcaster if it lands. The command word for this will probably be something like Forget or Intoxicate. Then, at level 16, we get a feat. We're already at 20 int, so I'm going to take Lightly Armoured. This gives Renneth light armour and shields, an effective +1 over mage armour. But we're at level 16 here. It should be reasonably easy to grab maybe +1 studded and a +2 shield. I reckon that this feat actually represents maybe +3 or +4 AC. It's actually quite good. It also means that we can swap out Mage Armor for Dominate Monster, which is an obviously thematic control spell for a character who's been using the power of domination since level 1. I think that Maze is probably the best pick here if you want to actually optimise though. Okay, 17. Once again a really big level. First up, a 9th level spell. We're just grabbing Foresight in the support column. Rather than it being precognition, Renneth will use it to accelerate an ally, massively boosting their reaction speeds. As I said at the beginning, Renneth specifically can't stop time, so time stop isn't an option, although it's not that great in this specific build anyways. The only other 9th level spell that I think is really great is Shape Change, although Psychic Scream can also be good in big group fights. Stunning everyone with no friendly fire is very powerful. Outside of that though, Renneth also gets an upgrade to her side dice, giving her 12d12, and 2 more disciplines, which will go into Expanded Awareness, finishing off the trifecta of skill check disciplines, so she can add d12 to any mental check she ever makes, and will also give her Swift Precognition, which mainly just lets her cast Banishment or Dispel as a bonus action. I don't think that this is that great, since we can use 1 side eye to Misty Step and cast a cantrip, rather than 5 to cast Banishment, but maybe we need to use that action to activate a magic item or something. Who knows? Finally, we get our last Bastion facility, and the Scion can't pick any of the 17th level facilities. They don't meet any of the prerequisites. Renneth specifically can pick Guildhall, since she took Skill Expert back at level 8. But honestly, just out of principle, I'm looping back to the level 9 training area. Maybe to get a mastery with the True Strike crossbow, or an additional skill, or something like that. Very little happens at 18, we pick up Antipathy Sympathy, and I've put it in the defense column, but it's pretty versatile. I think that Renneth's 9th level slot will be spent on Foresight basically every day, so I don't really think that there's much point in getting another 9th level. And then at 19 we pick up Maze for the same reason, as well as the Boon of Fate, boosting Dex to 16. This gives us 2d4 every short rest, which we can apply as a boost or penalty to any d20 test, probably when an ally fails a saving throw or an enemy succeeds on theirs. Dimensional travel or speed would be really thematic for Renneth, but she has so many good mobility features that they seem almost redundant. Finally, level 20. The Scion's capstone is Enkindled Life Force, which lets Renneth spend 2 of her hit dice to roll 2 more side dice whenever she uses a feature with them. If we use all of Renneth's features, those persuasion checks now have a min roll of 34. Obviously that's complete overkill, we'd spread out the features a bit more and use them on other stuff, but it's still cool. Renneth's last spell is entirely a flavour pick, Plane Shift. At the end of Renneth's story, the party doesn't kill her or capture her. She doesn't outright lose. Renneth escapes and disappears. She slows herself down and waits for the future, where she can attempt to take over again, once everyone has forgotten. What I really wanted was Sequester, but Plane Shift is a nice alternative. This campaign was actually framed as filming a documentary reenactment of the War of Names, with Renneth's reveal as the twist villain being an unfilmed story told by the narrator Adlar to a couple of the main actors, aka the players. Right at the very end, I had an epilogue scene, where the actors all walked through Danse Square, which has a statue of the Mother of Democracy, and they saw a black-haired woman looking up at it, grinning. God, I love Renneth. As I said, this was an incredibly character-based build. It was just me messing around. You can definitely make something more optimised, but I think it does show off some of the strengths and weaknesses of the Scion, or probably more specifically, the Psi Warper. They have the amazing ability to effectively specialise in skills for 2 mental stats, which is awesome. They have really good positioning abilities, or fantastic ones if you're in the Psi Warper, and they have quite good control options. Their damage freaking sucks. Their defense is heavily reliant on a few specific spells, although they do have some great mental saves, and they actually have some quite good information and utility spells. Levels 1 through 3 are absolutely stacked, but their 2, 3, 4 and 9 spell lists are kind of tricky, just because so much of it is either reliant on concentration, or limited by preps, or feels sort of redundant to take. I genuinely think that adding maybe Scorching Ray, Sleet Storm, Stone Shape and Divination would do absolute wonders for this list. You would need to change the flavour a bit to justify them though. Finally, genuinely a massive deal, their Bastion options are really limited. They can't take anything with a prerequisite, and that completely stonewalls them from some of the better options which they really want to pick up. Hope you enjoyed this little introduction to my favourite villain. If you want another fun build, I made a Throne Weapon Shadow Monk a few months ago. Or if you want something else a bit more narrative, here's a video about different player types and how you can adapt your DMing style. That one is actually one of my best videos, it's so good. Given that Renneth used domination to command you to subscribe and share and join my Patreon and stuff at the beginning, you should have already done that. But if not, well, you aren't very politically useful, are you? Bye!